Joining me now is someone who has worked both for the National Enquirer and for media organizations that do not operate like that. Lachlan Cartwright was executive editor at the Enquirer during the 2016 campaign. He is now special correspondent for the Hollywood Reporter. There's a lot to dig into with you about last week, and we're going to do that. But I first want to just ask you, because you've worked for a lot of media organizations, about what Lindsey Graham, a U.S. senator, by the way, said. Basically, there's nothing wrong with the catch and kill scheme, and a lot of people do it.
Well, I mean, the difference is that a lot of people aren't running for the highest office in the land, Jen. I think back to my tenure at American Media, which was a 3-year period, and I could probably count on both hands the amount of catch and kills that went on, and that includes the incidents with Donald Trump, before Donald Trump. I think, in David Pecker's testimony last week, people might have got the impression that this was almost a weekly practice, that we were catching and killing stories for celebrities and politicians and businessmen every week. That's just totally not the case. We were chasing yarns. We were trying to break stories. That's the reason I went there. Just sort of weeks before this deal is hatched, I break the Hulk Hogan N-word rant that meant that Hulk Hogan was kicked out of the World Wrestling Hall of Fame. So we were doing real news gathering until, as we've now learned, this August 2015 meeting happens, and David Pecker makes this deal to be the eyes it is. But this was not normal practice, and it's not something that was going on for anyone else that was running for president.
Or the overwhelming majority of media organizations, or any White House or campaign I've ever worked on. So let me ask you about last week, because, I mean, you knew a lot about what had happened. You obviously knew, of course, the prime big witness from last week. As you were listening to that testimony from David Pecker, was there anything that surprised you that you heard in that testimony, and what really stuck out to you?
Well, I mean, one of the first things that surprised me was, I said on this program 2 weeks ago that I was looking forward to looking David Pecker in the eyes and Dylan Howard, and we learned that Dylan Howard won't be, in court. He won't be testifying because of a spinal injury. So that, firstly, was something that I wasn't expecting. But as I said on this program 2 weeks ago, the underlying matter here is that this was a case of election interference. And, David Pecker confirmed that this was a scheme to influence the 2016 election in forensic detail. And David Pecker's not a journo. He's an accountant. But, sitting back in court and watching him and listening to him, I was incredibly taken with just how meticulous in detail he was able to lay this out for the jury. And, I know the story very well. I'm obviously invested. I work there. I'm now covering it for the Hollywood Reporter. But, I thought to myself, leaving court every day, he is doing a brilliant job in just setting the table of what actually went on here.
There were some text messages from Dylan Howard that were talked about, of course, last week. What do you think, if he were to take the stand, people would learn? I mean, is there more people would learn that we didn't learn last week?
Where Dylan Howard will play a role is when we get to Michael Cohen and the Stormy Daniels situation. So David Pecker has visibility into a lot of this, but as David Pecker himself testified last week, when it gets to the Stormy Daniels matter, which again, this is where the timing and the timeline is crucial here, Jen, that is going on right after the Access Hollywood tape, where the campaign is panicking. They're worried about the impact of that tape on female voters. And then Stormy Daniels comes on the scene, and David Pecker, in his own words in court last week, says, "I'm not a bank." He'd already done the 2 other payoffs, the Dorman, Dino the Dorman, and Karen McDougal. Now here's Stormy Daniels. She wants $130K, and Pecker says, no, they have to handle it, i.e. Michael Cohen and Donald Trump. And he actually tells Dylan Howard, let them deal with it. Now, Dylan Howard almost goes rogue here, and he himself gets very intimately involved in helping that situation. And so when the defense is going to be attacking Michael Cohen's credibility and calling him a liar, Dylan Howard will be able to sort of back up a lot of that testimony. And that's why, he would have been key here. In those text messages, again, that was something that sort of surprised me. The text message to Keith Davidson, to Dylan Howard on the night of the election, where Keith Davidson messages Dylan Howard and says, "What have we done?" I was at a pub in Manhattan watching the election results and thinking to myself, "What have I done?" So Dylan Howard would have played a key role on the stand. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lachlan Cartwright. Always so insightful and interesting. I look forward to talking to you more in the future. Thanks for joining me this evening.